Hello, Ed.
Hey Ellen, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited to meet you.
Yeah, me too. It's funny how I'm just putting my computer on do not disturb. It's funny how nowadays I feel like I've met so many people via LinkedIn and it starts with just a quick message and all of a sudden you're collaborating on something and you've never really met the person in person before, but it works. Yeah.
Exactly right. I know you're in a career development role at a university. Is that correct?
Yeah, I work at a nonprofit research institute that's
Okay.
affiliated with, yeah, it's
Oh, even
affiliated
better, even better.
with,
Okay. So
okay,
I'm going
good.
to ask. I have some questions already. Uh,
Okay. I don't really know what to expect, so I'm curious.
well, it really is an unscripted conversation. But I deal with people who are in career change and transition
Hmm.
all the time,
Yeah.
and almost daily. And it's that there's some kind of dynamic going on where people are either having to change or want to change or feeling the need to change or whatever it is. And
Hmm.
so that whole context is something I live with all the time.
Okay.
I mean, I had lunch with a friend yesterday, and he was telling me about his daughter, and I said, well, she needs to talk to me, and so we're now connected, and I'm gonna teach her how to network through introductions.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all
That's
right.
a
So
long, yeah. Let's
let's
do it.
let's do it. So,
Let's-
Ellen, tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, my name is Ellen Dobson. I am the postdoctoral and graduate program manager here at Morgridge Institute for Research, which is located in Madison, Wisconsin. We are a small nonprofit research institute that's affiliated with the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We have researchers that are doing amazing science. We call it fearless science because they're working on regenerative biology, medical imaging, so many different computational work, computational biology. Really, we just are bringing together, we're a research institute that's bringing together amazing researchers to do um, um, cutting edge research, right? Cutting edge science and giving them the space to do so. And so my work really involves supporting their researchers. So I do all of the career and professional development training for our in-house researchers, and that's from undergraduate students, graduate students, postdoctoral researchers, as well as staff scientists. So I'm here to support them in their career goals and their professional development. And so that's the work I do. I'm a trained scientist myself. So I have my PhD. But now I work as a career development expert. But I've
So
been,
what does that look like? What is, if you're a PhD scientist, what
yeah.
does career development actually look like? I don't know really what that is. So
Oh, so
let's
yes,
define it.
because there's so many different directions that PhDs can go with their training, right? So
Right.
if they obviously like the traditional career path is going from your undergraduate studies to doing a master's, a PhD, that's followed by a postdoc. So a postdoctoral researcher is essentially working as a professional researcher and building up their resume in order to then apply for a faculty position and run their own group, right? Research group.
Right.
That's the traditional path. But these days, many because there are literally more PhDs being produced than there are faculty positions.
Right.
The majority of PhDs actually don't end up becoming faculty in the end. There are many different directions that they can go into industry, nonprofits, government work. There's a lot of different directions that they can go, and not only just doing necessarily research, but also, operations work, marketing, sales, consulting. There's a whole host of different options. So I'm here to help support them and help them figure out to do that kind of career discovery work and help get them moving in that direction. So doing the networking pieces, I do trainings on networking and doing informational interviews, which is, as you know, a very essential piece to landing a job and doing that career exploration work. But also like how to effectively use LinkedIn, So because a lot of these things, we all have been in academia for so long, we don't necessarily know, like, how do we get out of academia? How do we find a job on the outside? What does that even look like? What are my skills, the skills that I have that I want to leverage effectively? Um, are they marketable? And like, what types of roles can I do using these skills? So that's kind of where I come to play.
Fascinating. So, are you working with recruiters too?
Not directly, indirectly, yes. Uh, I'm definitely open to connecting with recruiters if they're looking for if they're looking for amazing scientists to fill up slots, yes. But I don't necessarily it's not my job to actually it's not
Right.
my job to find them positions. It's my
Right.
job to teach them how to find positions, right? How to advocate for themselves, how to interview effectively, how to network, how to move through the world in a professional manner. That's what I try and train our researchers to do, as opposed to me just finding them jobs.
So, am I correct that there is there's a line there between the researchers who are really good at doing the abstract, very scientific oriented thing, and then those who are really good at interfacing with people and are good at self promotion and promoting their work, and that those two different groups are the people that you deal with largely every day.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's a good description of yeah, I think people in general, like, you have those scientists who are like, I just want to be in a lab doing my work, and
Yeah.
oftentimes they'll stay in academia because that is an environment where they're allowed. But in what capacity though? Do they want to be faculty? Do they want to be a staff scientist? What kind of role do they want to have? They still need to kind of carve out and find out where do I fit? Where would be a good fit for me? Some people are really interested in teaching, right, and training the next generation. Um, but then, yeah, you've got those other people who are like me, who have other skills that they can leverage beyond just the science and the bench work and those technical skills that they can leverage in many different ways, right?
So,
So
so,
yeah.
so as they go through their PhD program, their master then PhD program. I mean, they're interfacing with faculty all the time, or they're teachers and stuff like that. Are they, um, how do I ask this question? Do they help the student prepare for the next level, the next stage?
Well, I would say some are very good at um being effective mentors in that way.
Now, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, mentoring.
Yeah, like, for example, my previous advisor, because I also worked in science for a long time. I did my PhD postdoc and worked as a staff scientist. And my the last advisor that I had, the first question he asked me was like, okay, when I started a postdoc with him, he said, "Do you want to go into industry or do you want to go and become faculty? And depending on which direction you will go, we will tailor your work and your project
Yeah,
get
okay.
you where you need to go." That is quite rare in academia.
Oh, really?
Very rare. Most of the time, you've got true academics who are who have never really been trained to do effective mentorship or leadership. They were hired because their science is great, but they're not exactly like the necessarily the best mentors, or they want to be, but they don't necessarily know how do I advise a student who wants to go into industry when I don't know anything about it. I'm an academic. I only know how to become faculty, right? So I think that happens a lot. And then luckily there's people like me who are career advisors that are sprinkled throughout higher ed who are here to help those people. And like I see myself as a resource for both faculty and the students as well, right? I'm here to support all of you and moving people forward.
So when someone who's got their PhD, they're hired to go into this postdoc thing, or they're a postdoc and they're hired to go, are they, is the expectation is that they're really prepared to do all the whole gamut of what is required to, or,
I think industry roles, I think they're very I think it depends on the type of role that you're going into. If you're an R&D scientist, of course, they're going to hire you because they expect you to have certain techniques and
Right,
skills,
right.
technical skills, right? They expect you to know, and they know that you've been trained how to do science. Like, how do you, you know, how do you build a hypothesis? How do you, do the literature like review to really understand like where can this project move forward? Where are there research gaps? They have those expectations, yes, but I think there's differences depending on what environment you're in, right? If you're a postdoc who's been through has been mainly primarily in academia, moving into industry is a whole new world, right? It's a different environment. The expectations are different because you're focused more on the impact in product development, right? Like it's the bottom line is the most
Yeah,
important thing. Whereas as opposed to just the academic exercise of exploring and doing the research and generating new ideas, no, you have a product you have to build and it needs to be marketable, it needs to be cost effective, all of those things. So I think there's a huge learning curve whenever you're making those types of transitions. But I feel like so many people are making them now, and those who have already made the transitions give those others a lot of grace, and knowing that they have those. If you have your PhD, you're at or you're postdoc trained, you have your PhD, you're a postdoc, you know how to solve problems, right? You know how to approach a new territory and like gather the information in order to make the best decision moving forward. You are a problem solver. That is what you're good at. So you can pretty much be popped into any situation and figure it out ultimately, right?
yeah,
I think there's still a lot of grace that is given to those people who are moving through those transitions, knowing that it just takes time, like anything, any job, right? For anybody, whether you have your PhD or not, those transitions are there's always new things to learn and new landscapes to discover and try to um yeah, try to get an idea of what this new world is like. So
so one of the things that I have identified um, is that there are people who, they graduate from college
mhm.
and or they graduate with their master's degree and they go into a job and they work for that company for 20 years, and
Yeah.
they're in their early 40s and they realize this isn't what I want to do.
Mm.
And so if you've earned a PhD and you've done your postdoctorate and you've been working in a academic field or in a industry field for, let's say, 10 years, are there what's it like for them to decide I want to do something different and I'm going to change my life totally. I'm going to
Yeah.
go into a totally new direction. Do you end up talking with some of these folks like who
Oh
are at
yes.
the point?
Oh yes.
So
Oh
so what
yes.
is it that how do you direct that conversation when someone is 42 years old and they're a PhD and they've done well in what they've done and they say I need to make a change. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, I can start off by saying I was one of those people. I am one of those
Okay.
people. I lived that experience, right? So like I was in 20 years doing scientific research, as a student and then throughout my professional experience. And at one point I was like, I don't want to do research long term. I just didn't see myself doing that long term. I was looking for this fulfillment that didn't exist in that space for me, right?
Ah,
So that's when I started, and this is the advice I give to everybody. That's when I started exploring, well, what else can I do? And I did that exploration by having conversations with people, right? What do you do? Oh, do you have your PhD? Oh, in that case, I had my PhD. So those are the types of people I was talking to, but oh, I'm interested in the kind of work you do, learning more. I want to talk to you. And then they say, oh, you should also talk to this person. You should talk to this person, and like your network just starts expanding. You start getting exposed to other positions or other job possibilities that maybe that sounds like a good fit, right? Um, and that's what happened with me. I eventually found the world of career development and something just clicked. Something was like, this is the way you got to go. But I spent many years also just building up my resume enough so I could be competitive in that field, to apply to a job and get it. Luckily, it was in higher ed, so I also have that experiential piece
the
behind it
natural.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
but honestly, like I've had so many people who share that story that
Yeah.
have come into my office to have these conversations. And a huge piece of that a huge piece that I experienced myself too is this mourning period. Like you have the realization that
Mhm.
you don't want to do this thing. You're on this track and you're like, no, I want to get off this track. But your whole identity, at least you see your whole identity wrapped up in that one track.
Mhm.
And so leaving that behind, you do actually go through like a visceral mourning experience. Like for me, it was like grief, right? I had to
Yeah.
go through the different stages of grief to the finally the point where I was saying like I'm okay. These, whereas especially in academia, they if you don't become faculty, it's often seen like as like the carrot we're all chasing is to become a faculty member. And if you don't become faculty, you failed, right? Or you haven't achieved the greatest achievement there is, which is to become faculty. But you've got people who make these conscious decisions, and I was one of them, said, no, this is not what I want. And I even said one step further, no, I don't even want to do research anymore, right? And that's a lot of burden on that individual that they have to unburden themselves from those expectations from the outside, is what I'm trying to say.
Do you feel like you're squandering all the work and investment and time and money of your
Exactly.
past?
So
And
that guilt, there's so
yeah,
much
there's guilt
guilt.
that comes with that.
Yes, but at the same time, like I'm still a scientist. I carry that with me. Like I will always be a scientist. I've been trained in that world and I use that training and that knowledge every day in my work, right? It's just that I'm not doing science actively anymore. And so I think we have to accept that we are building skills along the way that can be applied in different ways that are still a part of who we are in our identity, right? Even if we move in a different direction.
When I talk with people about this, and I even wrote about this in my first book called
Yeah.
Circle Impact.
Hmm.
And I tell the story of a guy named William who he goes to work for this company right out of the box, and he's now in his mid 40s and he's risen to a position of significance in the company. And the company is purchased by a European company, and they're going to move his office to Europe.
Yeah.
And he can't do it because his children are at high school age, and he and his wife's parents are there, and they need constant attention.
Yep.
He's not free to leave and continue his career. So he's having, and what he realizes is that he has absorbed the value system of the company and he has no sense of what his own values are. And so he has to go through a time of rediscovering who he is.
Yeah, self-reflection. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, right? It's
yeah.
like you absorb someone else's values and identities or the systems or whatever you're in, and then that's why I spend so much time talking to my advisees about thinking about prioritizing your skills, the skills you want to leverage, the values you want to move forward with professionally, right? What motivates you? What's your career mission? And let that be your guide, right? Because then you're not necessarily tied to a single company, a single job title. It's about
Right.
like
Right.
what we talked about impact, about that, right? That story you did, right? Focus on the impact. And then you don't have to fear these transitions as you move professionally, right? Because things change, right? Your priorities shift, companies move, or you get married, you decide I'm not going to move for a job, right? I'm going to settle down and stay here. So there are things that happen in life, in your personal life and professional life, and your values will shift and change over time.
So, so in your interaction with your, I guess you're calling them clients or
Yeah,
your people, the people you're working with, you're, I would assume you're making a distinction between kind of universal transferable skills that can go anywhere, follow them anywhere, and those specific skills that were developed for the job that they have. And there's
right.
a distinction between that. And I'm guessing that for the most part, they're thinking about the skills that were defined for the job because they're doing that every day. I mean,
Yep.
but and so how do you get them to see the larger skills that are more universal and more transferable that they, if they leave academia and they go and work for Parks and Rec at the something like that,
Yeah.
or become a TV actor or something like that. What are those skills that really are important for people when they're making these transitions?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think so many people I talk with say, well, I just know how to do PCRs. I just know how to like work with large data and do, computational analysis. Well, how will that get me a job outside of that really specialized sphere? Like when you're going through your PhD, you become an expert on a super niche,
Yeah,
topic that you are the world expert in that little niche topic. You've applied many different skills in order to like answer questions about that topic, but you
yeah.
are the expert, right? So you're an island in a way. And I think so many times people think, well, I can't get a job elsewhere. Like, what am I supposed to do, right? I just only thing I know is this one tiny small thing. Well, what are all the skills that you used and applied to get there? You're a communicator, right? You've written papers. So you write, you're a writer, you're an editor, you deliver talks at conferences, you present, right? You're a presenter, you have communication skills, you've organized projects, right? So you are a project manager, you've worked with collaborators, so you know how to move pieces around to get projects moving forward, right? And getting that output. These are all the skills that then I have to like we literally have workshops about that, about marketable skills, transferable skills, reminding academics that they are more than those niche little technical skills that they have. And if they want to set those aside and leverage those other marketable skills, that's fine. They are in control and they decide which direction they want to go, but they are more than just those technical skills.
Are you I have a lot of questions because
Yeah,
I love this. I
that's
love this
fun.
field because I mean, what we're doing is we're giving people the freedom to go rediscover themselves and
Mhm.
do important work for their families and their communities, and what better thing? So, the other thing that I'm seeing
Yes.
are people who are in their mid 50s to early 60s who recognize that their career is coming to an end, but they realize that their life, their life expectancy is long, and they don't really want to retire. And so
Okay.
they're going to have to transition into something else. And I think this is a new arena for us to consider. I mean,
Oh, for sure. Yes.
people who are now going to work till they're 80
Hmm.
into 65. And are you encountering that yet with in your work?
No, I mean, primarily the people I work with are on the younger end.
Right. Okay. I
So,
was wondering about
so
that.
yeah, so the majority of people I'm working with they're students or postdocs, so they're in their 20s, 30s. They're really just starting out on their career journey. But but it's that transition, right? It's that transition piece of which is very it's like a mirror of the other end, which is retirement. It's the same. Like you have to do that self-reflection and all of that over again when you're approaching retirement to say like, well, what do I want to do with my time? What can I do with my time? How do I want to continue feeling fulfilled in either work or life or whatever I'm doing? So it's really interesting that you bring that up. It's
Well, I went through that 10 years ago.
yeah, okay.
And and I and
Well, how did you navigate it?
well, it's important to understand what transpired before that.
Okay.
So, I had started my consulting practice in 95. Never been a consultant, never run a business. So I'm starting all I build it by networking through introductions. Okay,
Hmm.
that's the given. Uh, and after 15 years, I was doing well. I was reaching the pinnacle. I was reaching my best um, clients,
Hmm.
most lucrative clients. And then the recession hit, and I lost all my clients in 6 weeks. This
Oh
was
my.
in 2010,
Oh
and
wow.
and so I took on a nonprofit that I was running, and that lasted for 18 months. I got fired. Uh, my
I like you laugh about that though.
My
Yeah,
consulting practice was failing. I got fired from this nonprofit, and my marriage of 30 years ended all within about 18 months.
Oh, Ed.
I call it the three losses. Now,
Wow.
okay, I went through that, and I'm I began my career as a Presbyterian minister, and I was doing interim stuff along the way. So I ended up as an interim pastor of a church that had gone through a crisis and the abuse of a pastor towards them and stuff. So I did that for a couple of years, but knowing that this is not the future. So when I
Mhm.
finished that, I'm sitting in my apartment. I'm saying, if I'm going to do anything for the rest of my life, so I'm at this point, I am 61 years old. If I'm going to do anything for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to move and I'm going to have to start over.
Mhm.
And so I moved from North Carolina to Wyoming, to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. But what quickly became apparent was I needed to start writing and writing full time. So I wrote full time. I'm still writing full time. And then out of that emerged podcasting.
Okay.
And so I have a whole new life that I wasn't doing before. And I'm not doing consulting anymore. And I do a little bit of coaching, but it's just kind of random.
Mhm.
Because those are skills, those are transferable skills to talking with people like you. I mean, in some ways, some of these interviews are like coaching.
Yeah.
So, but I see my trajectory going out to 100 years of age, and so I'm planning for that. And so
Yeah.
so so if someone is starting their career at 21, they're going to plan out to 65. That's 45 years, let's say.
Yeah.
They're going
Yeah.
to plan out for 45 years. Well, from 62 until 100, that's not quite 45, but it's close. So there's
Yeah.
these large sections of our lives. This is what I'm saying. There's large sections of our lives, large periods of time, where we can define those periods for this purpose, and then we can find the next one for a different purpose.
Yep.
So education, career, second career, whatever,
Yep.
retirement, and I think we're in a position now where that is far much more possible because there are more people doing it,
Oh yeah.
and the expectations are different on people. So
Yeah,
that,
and you see you have somebody to like for example you're setting an example in your own life and
yeah,
what is possible after you retire or if you don't need to retire, right? These are options that you can build for yourself and I mean, I'm working with that first tier, of course, that first transition into your career, but the skills that I'm teaching them, right? The methods to do these, to answer these questions, like what do I want to do? What are my values? What are my skills? How do I prioritize this? How can I make myself marketable? In what direction can I go? Those are all the skills that you apply once again, right? On the back end.
the good work you're doing when they're in their 20s is going to be valuable to them when they're in their 60s.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing too, is you never know what could happen. You could be in your mid 40s and like your company implodes or like you lose your job or a recession hits and your job is gone. You have to be ready to pivot. You have to be ready to change. And like all those skills are applicable once again, right? For
That's right.
sure. Yeah.
So, so the bigger picture. Let me ask. Let me. So you're obviously tracking a lot of this stuff because you want to be able to see what the context of career development is. And you've got a niche of types of people who are in career, but you're also seeing the big picture of where career development is going. Am I right about
I mean,
that?
I try and stay on top of it. Yes. So like, yeah, a lot of my colleagues don't necessarily work in higher ed with PhDs. I mean, that's the group that I work with. But I try and stay, you
But for
know,
the random person that you would meet on the street, you'd
yep.
say, "Yes, I'm an expert in this. I know this stuff. What's your question?" And you would probably be able to answer there. So, what do you see in the big picture of careers?
Yeah.
Let me set this up. My father was a World War II vet, came home, went to college, started to work in 1949 with the company, and he was with the company until 1986 when the company closed.
Uh-huh.
So one company the whole time. And And I'm not doing that. Most of the people I know are not doing that. So that's the career trajectory. So how should people how should high school kids, as they begin to think about careers, what should they be thinking? And because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to go get a PhD, but it's another thing that before you even get to that thing of being able to look out till they're 70 or 75, for 50 years, 55 years and say, what do I want to do for the next 50 years?
Right. Right. I mean, no, I think no matter what career you, whatever path you choose, right? I mean, there's always going to be new things to learn. There's always good. So I feel like it's that it's a growth mentality, right? That you won't necessarily get the job that you'll be locked in for the next 40 years, but as long as you're building skills and professional value in that position and it's moving you forward as opposed to backwards, then that's a win, right? So that's what I try and take that pressure off. I think a lot of times our academics have the pressure of, well, if I leave academia, if I don't become faculty, then I need to find that perfect job, that perfect role, the one that I'm going to be in, that the one that's perfectly suited for me as soon as I graduate or as soon as
Right,
I finish this position. And that doesn't exist,
right.
right? Or at least we need to take that pressure off, right? Because you might not find it because you can't, there's outside circumstances you can't control. Um, so again, it's just a matter of being open to new possibilities, which is why I always encourage everyone to talk to other people like you and I are doing right now, Ed, right? Like about your career, your path, like what are the things, how did you navigate these scenarios? Because that's something that people are going to have to do moving forward professionally. And so hearing more voices and more perspectives on what those paths can look like is really beneficial, right? And it gives you a bit of reassurance that your path, maybe it sounds like it's very zigzaggy and everything, but when you tell it in hindsight it seems very smooth, right, and very linear, but it's not. It's just a kind of, well, these circumstances led to this, which led to that, and then I met this person who introduced me to this and that, and then it sounds, yeah, do you know
I
what I'm
continue
saying?
to do the same thing, but I'm doing it in different contexts.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about generational differences. So
Ooh.
you've obviously you're most of your, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the people you're working with are either millennials or Gen Zs.
Yeah, that is correct.
Is there a difference between them in how they approach career?
um I feel like there's a lot of overlap, but I feel like it's I feel like there's a lot of overlap, and a lot of the overlap comes from this realization of, the big thing right now is work-life balance. I need flexibility. I want work-life balance. I don't want my career job to necessarily define who I am as an individual. It doesn't define who I am as an individual. I want to work to live and not live to work. I feel like that is the overall theme.
And,
And
and how
yeah,
realistic is that?
I think it's more realistic than we than we want to
Okay.
than many people want to admit. I feel like I see a lot of generally generational divide in, faculty versus their trainees, so people who are working under them, those postdocs and graduate students. And there's a lot of disconnect because of this idea around work-life balance and like we talked about before, an impact. I feel like the younger generations have a different view of how they want to move through the world. They're not necessarily looking for accolades and
Right.
um, climbing the ladder or this and
They
that.
want
They
to make a
care.
difference.
Yes, they want to make a difference. They want to have an impact. And I feel like they're driven more by that than previous generations. Even me, even my peers, right? And like growing up, I never thought that way as a PhD student. And now I get PhDs coming my door who are in their 20s who are talking about that, finding fulfillment, talking about impact and wanting to make a difference. And I'm just
My generation, I'm
amazed.
not a baby boomer, we didn't talk about that.
No.
We just, you got your job and you did your career and
Yeah.
the world has changed so much.
It's changed so much, and I really admire this younger generation and that approach that they're taking. It's much less it's much less about I don't know. I feel like the previous generations were again live that let American dream. I have the house, the car, the stuff, right? Those are the measures of success, which I feel like that's shifting now. The
Yeah.
measure of success has more to do with that impact and fulfillment and that personal fulfillment piece.
When I lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it's a resort town and it's a big outdoor activity place.
Hmm.
And a lot of kids, a lot of young people who are just finished college come out there and they're going to come and they're going to work for a season. They're going to work for a summer. They're going to work for winter.
Yeah.
Going to do some ski patrols, something, or they're going to work doing drift boats, or they're going to do something that pays them enough to live. And they may end up living in a tent out in the national forest because they can't afford. They're living off of nothing,
Yeah.
and they may be doing three jobs in order for them to live in this heavenly place. And then all of a sudden they decide I'm staying here. I'm going to work here. And so that work-life balance becomes I'm going to work really hard so I can go play really hard.
Hmm.
And so they may have three jobs, and and they're going to have all kinds of outdoor equipment. They're going to have a drift boat and they're going to have uh, four or five different mountain bikes, going to have, six sets of skis, and they're going to have to fund all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
I was watching these young kids when I was living out there doing that, and I recognized that they had a whole different view towards their life and career than I had when I was their age,
Hmm.
and they're not really thinking about career; they're just thinking about life,
Yeah.
how they're going to fund their life.
Yeah.
And I felt like that it seemed to me that that was a growing sensibility with young people, that the whole idea of attaching yourself to some big corporation no longer had as much appeal to them as I'm going to work three jobs so I can go play.
Right.
And I think that's far more. Now the problem is it's hard to raise a family that way.
But see, that's what I mean. Like your priorities shift, right? And
That's right.
values change. And that's okay. So if it serves you in the moment and it gets you to the next step, that's fine. But then there's always going to be stages in your career where you have to make
Have to
compromises.
make have to make the
You
change.
have to make compromise. Say, okay, well, I'm going to tie myself to a 9 to 5 job so I can get that income, so I can get that 401k, so I can have a family, because that's what I'm holding dear. That's the value that I have, or that's the goal that I have. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You're not a sellout or anything. Your priorities just change and shift over time. So no one needs to apologize for making those types of decisions.
Um, do you think education institutions, and you work essentially for one,
Mhm.
are adapting to this kind of changes in the way people look at careers and stuff?
Very slowly. And I think they're kind of fighting it. So I mean, I see that again, like I said, with the faculty versus the students that they're they're
Right.
mentoring or training, right? There's a huge disconnect and a misaligned expectations, bad like poor communication. It's two generations that aren't understanding each other. Um, and I think the system too is built that, at least the science system is built to um it's not create the scientific system training system is not built to provide the best mentorship, right? It's more about production. It's more about if you publish the papers, if you do the research, you do the work, you're awarded the grants, right? And then your lab can continue. And students and the trainees are kind of cogs in that machine. And unfortunately, faculty aren't necessarily rewarded for, fostering the next generation of scientists. What they're doing is literally like raising their competition, right?
Yeah.
Um, which is so it's not a system that's really condones or is not is it doesn't really support, right, the next
There's
generation.
a conflict of values that are going on there.
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Yes. So, um, I think it's becoming, honestly though, a lot of the newer PIs that I've seen have a better understanding of this younger generation. So it is happening that it's there's like this turnaround. It's slow, right? Because we're in between these generations that are kind of at odds, but I think it's slowly churning and turning, and that this new generation of PIs, a younger generation of PIs, a lot of the new ones that are coming in, when I say PI, I mean principal investigator, which is a faculty. Um, these younger ones are much more cognizant of this need for flexibility, of work-life balance, that their students look at productivity in a different way. It's not measured by the number of hours you put in, it's measured by the output,
Yeah.
that you actually make in the end of the day. And so I think they're given a lot more space to kind of
And
grow.
eventually some of them will become leaders and administrators in the system, and the system changes
Exactly.
because they see the
Exactly.
system needing to change. So,
Exactly.
which just validates what I've always seen, which is that all change begins at the bottom and percolates up through the system.
It definitely does. And it's also that, well, I had to go through this back in my day. I had to tough it out. So you do too. It's letting that go. We need enough
Yeah.
people to say, no, we're not going to keep
We're calling
going.
BS on that.
Exactly. And if enough people do that, the system will change. And it is very, very slowly though.
So,
Yeah.
I have a lot of guests on the podcast who come out of that world of PhDs, they're research people. Some of them are still in universities. Many of them are out of universities and businesses, and but they're all, have the same credentials and the same. They come out of the same mindset, and many of them are older than the young people that you're dealing with. And
Mhm.
it's really been interesting because it's not my world, but I'm being invited into their world, and they're telling me about it, and I find it fascinating. And but what I see is that um, we're on the cusp of dramatic change in the way these large institutions function, and they don't know it's coming. And 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 uh, and so people like you who are in touch with these all these people in terms of how they're managing their career at the moment that they're in the career. I mean,
Right.
at the moment that they're in a PhD program, that's their career at this point. I mean, you have a great deal of opportunity to have influence and impact upon where the world goes from here. I mean, it seems like you're in a small little segment of the whole thing, but who knows how far and wide your influence and impact will go because of the people that you're dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love what I do, right? I hope that I could leave a positive imprint, right, on their lives, and that I teach them something that they can take on and teach others and pass it along. And that's why I tell them too, when I made that pivot and transition away from science and doing research on the day to day, it led me to the most fulfilling job I've ever had, right? And I just want them to feel that too.
So this is my last, well, maybe my next to last question. Um, let's say a parent is listening to this, watching this,
Yeah.
and they have a child who's in ninth grade who displays a level of intelligence which would be sufficient for them to go do a PhD program in science. What should a parent be thinking and having the conversation with their children about? Because an investment. I mean, from what I understand, and I may be wrong on this, that if you're going to go do a PhD in some field of science, you really sort of have to decide before you enter college in order to know that you're going to be taking the right courses, you have the right degree, and have the right experience to put you in a position where you're really credible and suited for a PhD program. So you're starting when you're in your mid-teens, maybe even earlier, to get ready. So what do you tell parents? What should we tell parents to how to approach that when their children seem to have an interest in science and that sort of thing?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question because I feel like, so I'm a parent, right? I have two young daughters that are just 2 and 4 at this point. So I still have a long way to go till I have to have those conversations with them, which I'm glad I've got time. Um, because that's a lot. I think in any sort of career path, right? I would say you need to think about um the things that you enjoy, right? The things that make you curious. And that's why, like, that's what I ended up in science, right? I was a, I had many different interests. I was a musician. I loved art. I was thinking about doing all these different things. And in high school, I was like, science is fun. I really like it. There's something about it that makes me want to learn more. And I didn't necessarily have like a singular passion. It was, there was something about science that just made me more curious and want to learn more. And I would say if you have a child like that, let them explore, right? Let them explore that curiosity. But also, of course, they need to know the realities of our world. And so that's whether they go into science or any business or what, or arts and humanities, which we need more people to do. But we also have to make sure that they understand the realities of our world and living within our means. Like, what is the cost of living? And what does it mean if you get a degree in this versus that? And what does it mean if you decide to go into the sciences or the arts and humanities and then do a PhD, right? What
Yeah.
does that mean for your life and what kind of life you can lead? And having those discussions, um, but kind of letting their curiosity just take them in the right direction. Like I did,
Well,
I was interested in science. I explored it in high school. I decided to do it as my degree in an undergrad. I got my degree in molecular biology and bioinformatics, but I worked in a
no.
lab. I worked in a lab as an undergrad that studied bacterial pathogens, which is what led me to do my PhD in microbiology. So I still changed fields, and you can, especially in the sciences. So and then, I went on to do my PhD in microbiology, and then I did a postdoc where I learned imaging skills and doing microscopy, so working with microscopes. And then that led to another research opportunity where I developed computational image analysis skills. So I was doing computer work only, no wet lab, helping people analyze images that they take from microscopes, right? So just because you decide to go in one field in science doesn't mean you can't change and maneuver still as you go. And I think that's something we need to apply to careers across the board, right?
I think all of that is what a parent needs to hear,
Yeah.
and not to fear making a decision that they end up having to change. I think that's really what I was looking for. Just
Yeah.
explore. I think, I mean, that's what we did with our kids. My oldest, when he was 12, I mean, this was back in the mid 90s, so
Okay.
he's an old, he's getting, but he's about to become an old man. But I mean, we only had one computer in the house. He asked
Mhm.
for his own computer. So we found a used computer for him because he wanted to teach himself how to write novels.
Oh, wow.
So we gave him a computer, and he would spend 2 to 3 hours a day writing a novel. And he
Yeah.
wrote an alternative history of World War II, and he learned how to write dialogue and how to write battle scenes and that sort of thing.
Wow.
And he's published his first novel, and he's got two more that should be coming out fairly soon. And so, but
That's amazing.
yeah,
Gave him the space, you gave him the tools and the
that's
space
right.
and
That's
the
right.
space to just to explore, right? And like I think that's what we all need to do as opposed to imposing our own ideals or our own expectations on our
That's
children.
right. That's
And I
that's.
hope that, call me in 14 years, Ed, and see see if I'm taking
I'm
my
worried
own
about it.
advice with my own kids, right? But I hope that I can do that for them one day
I think
too.
your daughters are very fortunate to have you as a mother.
Oh, thank you.
Well, because it's not only it's not only your credentials, but also your experience. And they're going
Mhm.
to learn from that
Yeah.
because what you're going to find, my prediction is that they're going to start learning things or finding things, and all of a sudden you're connecting to things that they're learning, and the three of you will have these moments of, oh, that's so cool. Tell me, I'll tell you about when I learned about this, and you tell me, and I think that's one of the best things about being a parent is when the two of you or the three or the five of you, whatever it is, discover that you've learned the same thing, and it both is really cool to each other. So that's really great.
I hope for that too.
So do you have hope? Do you have hopeful? Is it hopeful? What is your hope for the future of people who come into the sciences in terms of careers? I mean, I see things on YouTube where, there's some criticism about the way science is managed and administered and
Hmm.
with a certain sense that the scientific research is not meeting the opportunity that exists for it. So I
Yeah.
don't know what that at all. I'm just telling you what I see and what I
Yeah.
hear.
Well,
What's your sense of the future of the scientific enterprise, shall we say?
I mean, it's interesting that you asked that question because it's a loaded question right now, right? I mean, higher education and the sciences are under attack essentially. And it doesn't matter where your politics lie, right?
Right.
It's set that aside, but the point is that there are those of us who work in the sciences who are doing it literally. We do this work for the betterment of humanity, right? We want to improve the next generation's health and wellness holistically, and the foundation of that is basic science, basic research, and
Right.
we need to live in a country um that supports that, right? That wants to say, no, we want our tax dollars to go towards this. But I think at the same time, scientists are also doing themselves a disservice because we do it. You could say, I mean, the typical phrase is like, we do it in our ivory tower, right? We're isolated and academic and we look down upon everybody else, but that's not the case, right? And I feel like there's this disconnect and communication that needs to happen between the general public and those that are doing science. And we're part of the general public too, right?
Yeah.
um we're just people, right? But we're trying to make an impact on lives, and I think there's just this disconnect and this communication that needs to be improved moving forward. But of course I'm still hopeful. Science, we're discovering new things every day, right? There's new innovations that are going to improve our lives moving forward. Look at the technologies that are just coming out now and how much things are changing. And I think we just need to be like doing so responsibly and collectively as a society, deciding how we want these things to move forward and how we want to have them grow. And it's all about just conversations at the end of the day.
Totally agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
Thank you.
loaded question, especially for right now, but
Well, it is, but you're a voice from inside that world,
yeah.
and your voice is clear, and I appreciate you sharing what you shared because I think we need to hear that voice because most of
Mhm.
us are on the outside, and and so much of what we're given is is really filtered information.
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
not going to
yeah.
say it's misinformation or I'm not it's even saying that because I don't know what it is. I
Yeah.
just know it's filtered.
Yeah.
Filter for a purpose, and defining what that purpose is one of the tricks of simply interpreting what kind of information we receive.
Which is why I think it's important that scientists need to be more direct with their communication to the general public and need to be speaking to them directly as opposed to having these filters in between, right? Where things can get misconstrued or there's
Right.
miscommunication, misinformation can happen. But talking to each other directly is the key. Yeah.
Well, let me pose this opportunity to you.
Hmm.
Introduce me to people that you think I should be interviewing because of this very thing. People who may be in the world of science, or even maybe some of your PhD students, who have something to say that you feel like would be helpful to helping the world understand this part of the world, which sometimes exists behind a laboratory
Closed
screen.
doors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
closed
Yeah.
door.
So that's actually a huge component of Morgridge Institute for Research. That's a huge mission of ours, is also we have a whole entire team here and that I'm a part of, but my job is more the inward looking education, so the professional career development training of our researchers, but we have a whole outward looking component to our to our team that do community engagement. So doing that science outreach, they do a lot of programming for K through 12 for the general public, for adults, where we're trying to like better communicate our work, our science, the value of our science and work to the general public. So I can definitely get you connected to a few people in that space,
Okay.
to have this conversation continue, because that's a little bit more outside my wheelhouse, but it's a very important conversation to have and to
Everybody's got a different perspective and everybody has different something different to offer and contribute.
exactly.
So, and the easiest way to do it is just email the two of us and I'll take it from there.
Sounds good, Ed. I can
So,
do that.
so, and I'm grateful for you to be here. And, it's, I'm somewhat envious of the job you have because you are in many ways developing the people who would be the leaders of the future.
Well, I'm hoping, I hope I'm having an impact on their lives for sure and their careers.
Oh,
And I can
there's
tell
no
you,
doubt. Just
I can,
the person that you've shown yourself to be, there's no doubt in my mind that you're having an impact with them, and they will benefit from it, and that benefit will extend much longer than the time that you spend in this job, I'm sure.
yeah, I hope so. And that's one more piece I would leave you with was that piece of hope. I can tell you by the students and individuals that come into my office that I have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis, they give me hope for the future. They make me feel proud of the work that we do, of the work that they're doing, of society, where society is going in the future. So they fill me with hope every day.
I'm glad to hear that. And I thank you for being with us. And I thank you all for watching the Andy Network podcast. I think you can take this as maybe a signal that maybe if you're unsettled in what you're doing in your life, maybe you should be looking at a career change or at least a job change. And if you need to understand what that is, there's lots of resources out there where you can find help. If you need to, just give me a call and we'll start to find that help for you.
There you go.
Thank you, Ellen, and
Thanks,
we'll see
Ed.
you all next
Okay.
time here on the Andy Network podcast.